Imagine this, 14,000 feet above northern India. The sky is clear, calm, almost silent. Inside two passenger jets, there's just the steady hum of engines and the soft rush of air. Then, in less than 10 seconds, metal screams against metal. The impact is so violent it tears both aircraft apart mid-air, scattering wreckage across the villages below. There was no warning, no time to react, just gravity, speed, and human error colliding. What exactly went wrong in those final moments, and why did it change aviation forever? On November 12, 1996, the airspace near Charkhi Dadri, just west of New Delhi, was unusually busy. India's aviation system was growing fast, but its infrastructure hadn't fully caught up. At 6:32 p.m., Saudi Arabian Airlines Flight 763, a massive Boeing 747 with 312 people, took off from Delhi, bound for Dhahran. A few minutes later, Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907, an Aviation Il-76, carrying 37 people, began its descent toward the same airport. On paper, the two planes were safely separated by altitude. In reality, they were on a collision course. At the time, Indian air traffic control relied on procedural separation, not modern radar. Controllers couldn't see the planes' positions in real time. They depended entirely on voice reports from the pilots. Communication was in English, but the proficiency of the pilots varied widely. Inside the Kazakh cockpit, confusion was already setting in. The crew was struggling with altitude instructions, mishearing commands amid the noise and unfamiliar accents. At cruising speed, a commercial jet covers over 8 kilometers per minute. A small mistake in altitude can become catastrophic almost instantly. Investigators later confirmed a crucial fact. The Kazakhstan Airlines flight descended below its assigned altitude. Instead of leveling off at 15,000 feet, the aircraft dropped right into the path of the climbing Saudi 747. The cockpit voice recordings revealed confusion over altitude units. The Kazakh crew was used to thinking in meters, but Indian air traffic control gave instructions in feet unknown, but unresolved, mismatch at the time. Most critically, neither aircraft had a modern collision avoidance system to warn them. In 1996, TCAS, or the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, was not yet mandatory worldwide. The planes were flying blind to each other. At 6:40 p.m., the Saudi 747 was climbing through 14,000 feet. The Kazakh Il-76 was descending through the exact same altitude. Fast. No alarm sounded. No evasive maneuver was even attempted. Physics took over. The Il-76's wing sliced through the Boeing's fuselage and tail. The 747 broke apart instantly, its engines tearing free. The Il-76 lost control just moments later. Both aircraft fell from the sky within seconds. Witnesses on the ground described a thunderous crack, followed by what looked like flaming debris raining down across the fields. Some thought it was a missile test. Others believed the sky itself had exploded. The Saudi Boeing 747 disintegrated almost immediately. The tail section separated, making it completely uncontrollable. The aircraft entered an unrecoverable dive, hitting the ground at extreme speed. The Il-76 managed to stay airborne for a few seconds longer, but without a wing and with its critical systems destroyed, it spiraled downward, crashing into farmland miles away. There were no survivors. In total, 349 people lost their lives, making it the deadliest mid-air collision in aviation history. Rescue teams arrived to scenes that defied comprehension. Wreckage was scattered across multiple villages. Personal belongings were embedded in trees and fields. The impact forces were so severe that identifying the victims took weeks. Aviation authorities around the world were stunned. This wasn't just another accident. It exposed just how fragile the entire system still was. Clear skies, standard procedures, to professional crews. And yet, everything failed. The question wasn't just what happened, but how to make sure it could never happen again. Behind every statistic were lives interrupted mid-sentence. Families waited at airports in Saudi Arabia, India, and Kazakhstan, watching arrival boards that never changed. Hours passed. Then, officials arrived with the devastating news. For the villagers near Charkhi Dadri, the trauma was deeply personal. Aircraft parts fell into their homes and fields. Some residents were the first to reach the crash sites, encountering scenes they would never forget. The loss crossed borders, languages, and religions, united only by shared airspace and shared grief. The official investigation, led by Indian authorities with international support, reached a clear conclusion. pilot error, compounded by systemic failure. The Kazakh aircraft had violated its assigned altitude. But investigators emphasized something deeper. The system had allowed that single error to become fatal. There was no radar coverage to visually confirm the plane's positions. There was no automated warning to alert either crew. And there was no standardized global enforcement of altitude units or English language proficiency. One recommendation stood above all others: the mandatory installation of TCAS on all commercial aircraft. TCAS uses transponders to independently track nearby aircraft and can issue direct commands to the pilots, like climb or descend, even overriding air traffic control if necessary. Within years of the Charkhi Dadri crash, TCAS became mandatory worldwide. Airspace around major airports was redesigned. English proficiency standards for pilots and controllers were tightened. India rapidly modernized its radar and air traffic control systems. This tragedy didn't just close an investigation, it rewrote global aviation safety rules. Every modern passenger jet flying today carries systems born from the lessons of this single, terrible night. Today, mid-air collisions between commercial airliners are almost unheard of. Not because humans stopped making mistakes, but because systems learned to catch them. Every time TCAS commands a pilot to climb or descend, it echoes the lessons of 1996. Every radar sweep over congested airspace reflects a promise written in loss. The Charkhi Dadri crash remains a permanent marker in aviation history, not just as a tragedy, but as a turning point. It reminds us that safety is never accidental, and that the sky, as vast as it seems, leaves no room for misunderstanding. So when you board a plane today, think about the invisible systems protecting you, the warnings you'll never hear, and the collisions that will never happen, all because of lessons learned from the past. What part of this story shocked you the most, the human error, the system failure, or how a single event could force such massive change? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to explore more stories that reshaped the world, make sure to subscribe. The sky still holds secrets worth telling.